Hello, everybody.
Good
Welcome.
evening.
Welcome to the session. We are going to be talking about reframing quiet in your career and looking at it as a strength. And this is the wonderful Lara. And Lara is a career consultant at Oxford University, and she's a friend of mine who we trained together on one of our coaching courses last year. So that was really lovely to be able to introduce you to Lara.
Thanks, Hayley.
So before Lara properly introduces herself, I just want to say that you're not on camera, you don't have a microphone on, so you can't accidentally turn things on. You have a chat box on the right hand side if you're on a laptop, and a little button if you're on a mobile to open up the chat. And we encourage you to type your experiences, your questions and your comments and your reflections into the chat box and interact with us in that way. You don't have to, but it's really lovely when you do. And then you'll be sent a replay after the session. So with that, I'm going to hand over to the lovely Lara. And do you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself, Lara?
Yep, certainly. So my name's Lara Hayward. I'm based in Oxford. As Hayley said, I met her through a Blue Health coaching course, which I'm hoping to bring more of into my coaching work. And as well as my role at Oxford, I have a sort of portfolio career. So I do a little bit of sports coaching, private career coaching with individuals, and doing workshops like this for external organisations. And yeah, my primary role is at Oxford, where I kind of lead on careers in creativity, sustainability and law. So it's a really, really broad programme. And I also work with one of my colleagues, Annie Dutton, to lead on the disability front as well. So it's really broad and varied. And we see undergraduates, graduates, alumni, a really broad spectrum of people. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me, my story later, but that's sort of me in a nutshell. And I'm very excited to be here. So thank you for inviting me along. And with that, I shall crack into my slides. Presentation should be about 30 to 40 minutes. They're fabulous. They are working. This is good news. So intros, we've already done that. So a little bit more about why I'm here. And as I say, I'll go into depth later, but I really, really know what it's like to be a quieter person in the workplace. But I dealt with that probably not in a great way at the start, because I was certainly a person who had an extrovert mask on for a long, long time. Probably, let's think, when did I start working? So probably at least 10 years. And that's really, really exhausting and really, really tiring. So it's really nice to sort of take that off and, get more comfortable with who you are. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I hope I can sort of support you with. Just a little bit of an outline of the session going forward from there. I'll set out what I hope the outcomes will be from this session. As Hayley said, please do type anything that you want in the chat as we're going along. I'm going to take a break for questions about halfway through as well, but please do fill the chat box with any comments that you have, because it's really helpful and really valuable, and enables me to learn the types of things that you need to know about. And it's really good hearing everyone's experience, because that's what allows us to kind of make these workshops better and more bespoke. So please do that. Then I'll dig a little bit more into my story, and hopefully that might give you a flavour of why I'm running this workshop and how I've probably lived through a lot of these things. And then I'll sort of break it a little bit into two parts. The first section will deal with some ideas for how to reframe sort of quieter qualities and how to value them, and how to really bring back careers and sort of progression through work back to yourself and what you need, as opposed to always searching for those job titles which aren't connected to us and what we need. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the second section will go into sort of more specific detail about how to perhaps tackle things in the workplace that are generally more difficult for quieter people. So that will be interviews, networking, presentations. And I originally started this sort of dealing with that first, but what I realized is it all comes back to knowing yourself really well and really trying to reframe quiet. I think that is the most important thing for anything, actually. I think that's the biggest life lesson I've learnt. And the more I meet other people who are quieter or more introverted or just need more time to recharge their energy, the more I see that that's true. So we'll dig into it like that. Then I've got a few tips and tricks and some resources that you can take away and look at in your own time. And then, yeah, just reiterate, feel free to ask any questions at any time and we will get around to them. Okay, so what I hope this workshop will do, and do feel free to give me feedback or Hayley or Stacey afterwards if it doesn't, to support you to see your quietness, your introversion, those skills that you might see as valuable. I really hope that this will enable you to start seeing them as strengths and just thinking about how to enter into the workplace with that mindset, because it can really change things. It's not necessarily a quick pathway, but if you can start doing that, it can really help you value yourself as a person and then put yourself forward in the best possible light without faking it, without sort of trying to be somebody else. I hope it might reconnect you with your unique skills so you can, again, sort of see them through a different lens and also just give you a bit of a window onto them to look at them in a different way. As I said, I've got some resources already and then some advice on preparing for those tricky bits. But if it doesn't do that, do let me know. And you can do that live as well. I'm perfectly happy to take feedback and helpful kind of breaks in that. Oops, sorry if we delay. Okay. I should probably also say, everyone, that there was a little bit of delay at the start. So if that happens, I'll turn my camera off. But hopefully we'll proceed through without any problems. So when we were putting together this workshop, I asked Hayley to give me an indication of the kinds of things that were coming up for people when they were talking about work. These comments here are from members of the Quiet Connections community. And I just wanted to draw some of those out so people can see, one, that they're not alone, but also the types of things that keep coming up. And you know, some of these sort of really break my heart, but also I really understand them. You know, that feeling that introversion is not something that employers deem valuable. I think that's a general sense amongst many people, but actually, again, it's not true. It really isn't true. And hopefully this workshop will show you how and why it's not true. I think the one quote that I'd really like to highlight on here is the pink one down in the corner, where it says, "If I had known more about introversion from a younger age and its gifts and its weaknesses, I would have chosen a completely different life path." And what I love about this is that person has actually identified that there are gifts within it. And I think that's my hope. That's why it's probably no surprise that I'm doing careers work with younger people, because I think that's where the reframing needs to start, ideally. So people don't feel they need to fit into this box. It's actually, there's space for everyone. And, you know, we shouldn't all be shunted one way. And there's a few more on this slide as well. And again, I think just reiterating, we've probably all felt these things at a certain time. I have been that person on many occasions. In the text in black there, it says, talking to people at social events and conferences, I feel terrified to do so and end up hiding in the toilet and feeling rubbish about myself. Like, that is me through and through. Usually I'll eat the food first if there's food to eat, and then I'll go hide in the toilet. So, and that will probably still apply, actually, because often some networking and conferences can be a bit of a waste of time, or just, you know, opportunities for people to showboat. So don't worry about it if you do that, but I'll give you hopefully some ideas for making networking a little bit more inspiring and appealing and interesting for you. All right. So I'm going to roll back a bit now and just dig a little bit more into my story. So about 2 years ago, it only feels about a year ago, because of COVID's just sort of sucked an eye out of life, and who knows where we were. I opened Creative Careers Night at the Oxford Ashmolean Museum, which is a huge museum. It's a really big careers event that we'd never run before. It was basically my baby. I sort of designed and delivered it and then had to open it. And what you can't see from this picture is that this is a sort of huge spiral staircase. I'm standing there, and then below me there were about 450 people, including key academics, recruiters, students. And it's probably one of the most terrifying things I've ever done. And I very nearly didn't do it. Like the day before, I was in a colleague's office saying, I'm just gonna get Ollie to do it. And Ollie is the chap on the right there, who's one of the most gregarious people I've ever met, full of confidence, can talk for hours about anything, probably makes it up half the time. And I was just going to get Ollie to do it. And I had a very supportive colleague, Julia, who basically said to me, she was like, this is your event, like you've created this. It would be crazy not for you not to open it. You know, what do you need to do this? And I was just in a blind panic and going, I don't know, I just can't do it. And Julia is also an introvert, so she completely understood it. But she sat me down, we worked through a very short 5-minute speech about how I was going to open it. And then I practiced it in front of her, and I think I cried about 3 times, and you know, was going red and going, no, I really don't want to do it. And she supported me through that. And anyway, long story short, I did get up there and do the speech. I probably missed 50% of it. In my head, I was going, oh God, I completely messed it up. This is terrible. And then afterwards, after the event, because of course everyone else is there, the students are worried about their careers, the people on stage are worried about presenting properly, everyone's kind of in their own heads a bit. So it didn't really matter what I said in a way, and I think I could recognize that afterwards. But also the win for me was just actually getting up there and doing it. And I'm really pleased I did, because I think if I hadn't have done it, I would have felt like, oh God, I just let that opportunity go. And it wasn't because I wanted to speak, it was more because I cared about the event and was so kind of linked to it. It wouldn't have been right for anyone else to open it. And I share that purely because it's an example of, for me, I was able to do that because I really cared about what I was doing. Whereas I think in law, there wasn't that connection to what I was doing, and there was a lot of fear. And I kind of wrote notes for this, and the sort of backstory to this is when I was a lawyer, as a student, I had to do a moot, which is like fake courtroom scenarios. You get up there, you sort of pretend to be a lawyer in front of a judge and other lawyers. Basically, I blanked, ran away, ran to the loo, crying. When I was training as a lawyer, we have to do a professional skills course. There's an element of that, which is advocacy. It's another fake courtroom scenario. I was up against the sort of smartest, brightest student from Cambridge who had also done acting and all of this. He was using words I didn't understand, also cried, ran out to the loo. But the difference there was that I met another girl who's now one of my closest friends, Tash, who was in a different group who'd done exactly the same thing. And we connected over that. They were like, we're both finding this really hard. And so you kind of find there are allies in your quietness as well. And that happened on many, many occasions until, and I used to avoid it, but it was until I left law and then I came back to Oxford to actually study, and I started at the career service part-time, and I was doing 2 days a week, and I knew I had to give presentations. But the 2 key differences there was that, one, I was giving presentations about things that I cared about empowering people to go into careers that suited them and that they really wanted to go into, and helping people to not be forced into a box effectively. And the other thing was actually working with an employer who really valued differences in people. And the career service actually ran an exercise where everyone did their sort of MBTI profile, and then we all worked together and had to share what we were, how we liked to be worked with, what our touch points were, what didn't work well with each other. So it's an organisation that really wanted to encourage that kind of understanding of different styles of working and enable people to see that it's not extroversion versus introversion. It's you know, when you bring people together with different styles and they can really understand each other, that's where kind of magic happens. And I think it's because of those 2 things that I was then slowly able to build my confidence. And I found I had confidence to say, well, I really want to do this presentation, but I only feel comfortable doing it in small groups. Can I start there? And it was an employer that would work with that. And that really is how it started, getting up to being able to you know, speak to 450 people in this famous museum with quite scary people there. And I'm sharing that, I hope, to show that it's always, I think it can always be possible to work with what you've got to, and I'm not going to say overcome, because that sounds like it's something that we all need to do, but I think to certainly work with the skills that we have And it's really important to do that in a safe environment with people who understand and in a way that you're comfortable with. But I do think it's really possible. So I hope that gives you a flavour of why I'm here, and also that I really do understand these things, and I've sort of lived through them. So, sorry, oh, there we go. So now we're going to go into a little bit of how to reframe quiet. Now, this was a quote that Hayley passed to me, somebody who I hope is either in the workshop or will view the recording afterwards, about their particular challenges with the workplace. And I'll give you a little bit of time to scan through it, but it's an amazing example of how we can talk about ourselves when we feel like our quieter qualities are really limiting us. And I think when I saw this, I could really see it with a career coach's eye. And the elements I've highlighted in yellow, so this person understandably feels like their social anxiety is getting in the way of them progressing at work, and getting to interview and doing things within the workplace where they feel sort of comfortable and confident. But what I could see from this already is there's a lot of success here. In these words, I've always had jobs. Now that shows me as a career coach that this person is excellent at writing written applications and putting CVs together and communicating in a verbal context and getting to interview. Like, that's an amazing skill. Not everyone can do that. So that's something to really note and value within yourself, that you're doing super well. Where this person's also said that they've got part-time social media work, I have sort of inferred from this, that sounds like that's a place where you're comfortable and you enjoy that work and you're quite happy with it. So if there are elements, and for anyone sort of who's on the call or who's thinking about work and careers, try to think back over the things that you've done in the past where you have felt comfortable, confident. Make a note of them. I'd journal them all down and start seeing, are there any links here? Are there any threads that bring this together? What is it about these particular things that enable me to work well in this role, or that enable me to feel safe doing it, enable me to feel happy? Because often there are threads in those things that show us where our skills are, where our confidence is, or where we have more confidence. And that will start building a picture of potentially the types of roles, the types of skills you want to use, the types of things you want to apply for. And it goes on, got a cleaning job. So again, this person is showing me that they have no trouble getting to interview and getting roles. So you are doing lots of things right. It really isn't bad, and it's not all bad. And there's lots of really, really good and strong stuff here. And this is the reframe. It's, we're all naturally biased to look at the negative, look at what we could have done better, look at what we've done wrong. That's a very human trait. But I think a lot about careers or confidence building in careers is actually flipping that on its head, reframing it and looking at what's going really well. Again, had a couple of interviews. I had another interview on Thursday. So again, this is amazing stuff. Not everyone gets lots of interviews. So I'd love to see your applications, because they're obviously really well written and really well worded. And then the overarching thing is, what would you recommend for someone struggling with job interviews and work? So I think that's the starting point. It might sound basic, but come up with a list of things where you don't feel that anxiety, where you do feel happy, where you do feel like you are producing good work and doing things well. Ask some people that you trust also what they see in you, what they think you do well. Because often, I think particularly when we're in this position, we don't see it in ourselves, and it can take other people to say, well, actually, that was brilliant, and I think you have real skill at that, or real talent, or I love talking to you about that because you came alive about it. So definitely talk to trusted people and just start making a note of it. As I say, these are the sort of first steps into this kind of work and really understanding what your values and skills are. But hopefully they're not too kind of high pressure. It doesn't involve loads of work or personality testing or this, that, and the other. And they might be things you want to think about later. But it's a different way of doing it with work, because I think the problem before is that it's always been very linear. You study a subject, you go into a certain role, you then look for another job with a similar job title that's progression. You're always looking for a job title. And I think careers start with the person. So it's look at you first and what you need and what you'd like to do before you look at what's out there and what roles are out there. There you go. And I think that's really key. And as we go through, I'll identify some ways that you can start building on and some resources that will hopefully make that process a bit sort of more straightforward. So as I say, start with you. I think before we go into work, and I wish they did this at school, and I don't think they do, but I think they really looked at sort of individuals and what they bring to the world, where they're comfortable, where they're confident, how they like to work, how they like to interact, what situations, environments, all of those things are really important. And we see this a lot later on in work, where organizations look at cultures and look at well-being strategies, but it really should start earlier. So this is why I think it's hard for us to do it as adults, because we've been conditioned to look at work in a very different way. A little note there about introversion and extroversion, because I didn't, I thought introversion sort of quiet and just looked at it in that way. And when I use these terms, introverted, quiet, anxious, I'm very aware that they have sort of much broader interpretation. So I don't mean to reduce them when I'm talking about them. I will use them interchangeably, and I'm very aware there's a scale of those things. But I think introversion, it is about energy. It's where you sort of get your energy from, and I very much need time alone in solitude in nature to recharge. And I have a very sort of front-facing, client-facing job, and I love interacting with students, but afterwards I am absolutely shattered. And we can do 3-hour blocks of talking to people, but I need that time away. But my extroverted colleagues, they would never understand, they would never assume that. So I think that's the other thing about this kind of work. And this is why I love Quiet Connections and the community that Stacey and Hayley have set up. It's championing that, and it's kind of, increasing that solidarity and hopefully giving people a little bit more comfort or confidence to just say at work, actually, I work in this way. So, maybe we can think about how we can adapt that, or can I submit my thoughts by email after the session? So these are all little things we can start building into how we work and the way we work. Because sometimes people might not be aware that that's what we need. And I think for me, that was certainly my sort of my situation, because everyone thought I was extroverted, but it was kind of, crushing me inside being like that all the time. So it's only when I started saying, I need time away from stuff just to recharge. And they were like, oh, okay, right. Understand now. So I think it can be clear, and we can sort of help ourselves in that way. Just going down a few more of these things. So really try and tune into when you're feeling energized or engaged. And I use this, so we use a number of tools at the Careers Service. Some have been more sort of successful than others. People have personal preferences. But this comes from Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, who are 2 Stanford University professors. And they both have design creative backgrounds. And they designed a course. They first did Designing Your Life, and there's also Designing Your Work Life. And they have this fab exercise in there. I've got links to some of these resources at the end of the session, where they ask you to sort of record lots of things that you do over maybe a 2 to 3 week period. And it could be, making a cup of tea, talking to a friend, and then your sort of work situation. So for me, it might be speaking to a student, running a workshop. And then in the moment, you record how energized you are on a scale of 1 to 10 and how engaged you are on a scale of 1 to 10. And if you do that over a period of a few weeks, you start to get a really good picture of the types of tasks you like doing and why. And I think it's such an easy way in to sort of connecting with, because in an ideal world, you want the things you do to make you energized, and you want to be engaged with them, because that's when we're in flow, that's when everyone does their best work. So if you can kind of tune into those moments when you feel that, and it's a great, really short kind of exercise to kind of go, okay, that's where I'm sort of working really well. Or conversely, God, I really hate doing that because it doesn't energize me and I'm not engaged. And that then helps to, it enables us to then build our own kind of ideal job descriptions. So you start knocking out the things that you, in an ideal world, you don't want to do, and you focus on the things where you do your best work. And I think that also goes back to another exercise of theirs, is to look back over your work, life, career, think about those things that you are extremely proud of, or things that, you know, may have been challenging, but you've come out in a really good way. You look back and go, God, that was a real win for me. And again, do a deep dive into those things. What was it about that? What in particular things? So one of my examples was, I did a London to Paris cycle ride with Tash, actually, the other introverted friend who was crying in the loo. And we did that. We hadn't really cycled before. We were clearly like the most amateur people there. We both fell off God knows how many times. I think she got really sick because she overcooked it. It was one of these kind of crazy trips. So for some people, that wouldn't have been a success, but we were so proud of ourselves for just trying something new, seeing Paris by bike, and it was something that we did together. And when I sort of looked at why that was happening, what was it about? I loved the teamwork. I loved doing something with somebody I really cared about. I loved being active. I loved travel. I love meeting people from all over the world. And, you know, those then can start factoring into work decisions and work conversations as well. So it could be anything, but just think about what it is that makes it important to you. And then, as I say, this is keep this in mind, this writing your own job description. I think it's a really great way to dream and also have aspirations. So just keep a big long list of the things that you would love to be doing, even if it's like sipping a pina colada on a beach in the Caribbean, you know, because that's telling you something about yourself. That means you love being in the sun, or you need recharge time, or you need recovery time. So do keep that. And I know that might sound, you know, a little bit of an indulgence, but I mean, you know, it's a good thing to indulge in, because there will be something in those things that you come up with that are showing you the kind of ideal path for you to be on. And then the final sort of remark on there, this actually came up when I was doing research for this talk, and I just loved it, you know. And I think it was in, I can't remember her name, I think Michelle Hickey, who's talking about being an introvert and sort of giving presentations. And she said, you know, remember, extroverts are asking you why they're quiet because they're worried that you don't like them. They're thinking, okay, why are they not talking? Because they're worried about how that reflects on them. So it's very easy, and I know I have done this in the past, to think, oh God, they're criticizing me, there's something wrong with me. But they're asking that question because how you are is affecting something in them. And I think it's helpful to remember that too. Even though it can feel like you're being attacked or like you need to be different, actually there's a reason why they're asking that question, and that will relate to their stuff and whatever they've got ongoing. And I think that's just something that's helpful to remember as well. It might enable to give a bit of space from it if you're feeling a little bit triggered or like you need to change. Okay, so these tools here, so these are some free resources, because I thought that might be a good place to start. So you can check them out and see if they're relevant to you, if they're helpful. So the first two, the Designing Your Life workbook, that actually gives you a big long list of all of the career tools that Bill Bennett and Dave Evans use. It doesn't have the narrative around them, so if you're not familiar with their work, it might be a bit unclear, but there's also a TED talk, so that will get you into that work. And I think the book, it is available in most libraries, or it's on Amazon for about £10, which talks about the sort of methodology around it. And then the third one on there, I've just come across this. I think this is an absolutely brilliant resource. So Lucy Vignola is another career coach. She had another sort of prior career before coming to this kind of work. And she has put together, and this is completely free, it's a 50-page workbook, and which is broken down into 9 different modules. And there's tasks to do, so you can identify your values, your skills, your talents, your purpose in life. Because I think when we know or have a sense of what our purpose might be, something that we're really drawn to, that's when we start to find those things that we consider super important and can enable us to sort of direct ourselves to work that matters. And I think for quieter people, that's absolutely crucial. But it's a fantastic resource. I wish I'd come up with it myself. I have to say, it's super accessible. And I really recommend checking that out, because that's something you can just do in your own time and take your time over it. And it will give you really good insight, I think, to how you like to work and where you might like to take your career. Okay, so moving on. The other thing I think to think about with work, I think lockdown has created a number of opportunities that in some ways are more suited to people with quieter qualities. And this is a personal reflection from two groups that I have become involved with, but I know that there are also others. London Writer Salon is the first one on there, which is something that I started going to right at the start of lockdown. There's two people, also both introverts, set this up because writers, one's sort of more of a creative writer, another is an academic, and they wanted, given that we weren't able to see people face to face, they wanted to set up a community where people could interact, kind of hop on, work, sort of in silence, but with other people. So it sounds a bit nuts, but everyone logs on at 8 o'clock in the morning. They write together for an hour and then log off. And the sessions are always started. People give inspirational quotes at the start, talk about the work that they're working on, just in the chat box. So everything's in the chat box. And then they'll sign out with how they're feeling at the end. So it gives that sense of community for people who might sort of feel isolated because they are quieter, because they don't like interacting with people face to face or have less time to do so. And what I love about this, when I first started doing this, there were 30 people in that community. And then I had a big gap from it because I was on sabbatical, and then I came back to work, and I started using it again to sort of get writing done. It allows sort of really focused writing time. There are now, I think, 560 patrons. So they've gone from 30 to 560 in a year. They run 4 writers' hours throughout the day. And this is global as well. So they have one in the UK, one, I think, Eastern time, one Pacific time, and one for Australia and New Zealand. And I mention these guys because if you're doing any kind of work, so if you're a freelancer or if you're part of a team but you're working at home and you want some sense of community or some sense of being able to work with people and be as much a part of it or as not, they're fantastic, and they're welcoming to everyone. And I think it's just, for me, that's a real example of the power of quiet. It's people saying, well, we want to create a community. We want it to be very different from how these communities usually are, and it's just grown sort of exponentially within a very short period of time. And it shows you that there's a need for these things. And we're seeing other examples of that a lot. And I think often it's in those sort of more creative disciplines where people do tend to be quieter, more introverted, or working sort of on their own thing and want to work in their own way. So there's just a few examples, but I would also suggest just looking to see what's out there, because certainly at the Career Service, we're trying to get a big list of these things together. And if that happens, I will send it over to Quiet Connections, because it just helps people to engage with different communities and work communities, but in a very, very sort of different, but hopefully, in a safe way, in a really safe space. And I think that just sort of sums up the last bit with all of these things. So once you've sort of looked at your qualities, looked at how you might like to work, looked at how you want to engage with people who might be doing similar things to you, take it at your own pace, and really value that, really sort of value that in yourself, that's what you need, and in a place that feels safe for you as well. So if that's sort of at home online and typing in the chat box, then keep that. Don't try and force yourself out of it if that's not something you want to do. Okay, so I'm happy. I thought if people either might need a break or would like to ask some specific questions in the chat now, I thought we'd sort of take a break before we go into the sort of more specific bit about dealing with those icky things like presentations and interviews. So I don't know, Stacey, Hayley, what do you think? Sort of 5-10 minutes if people just want a break to get a drink or use the loo or ask questions.
Yeah, just a couple of minutes if you want to. I want to go and grab a drink. And yeah, in the meantime, type your questions and experiences into the chat box and we can start a bit of a discussion in there. Any particular challenges that you're having, let us know about it. And then we can have a bit more of a focused chat. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll be here, everyone. So if you do want to ask some questions, then yeah, just fire them across in the chat.
I have a quick question, Lara. Just the resources. because the resourcing that we download, the links don't work, and I'm struggling to find the Love Your Work process.
Okie dokie.
On Google.
It's probably easier. I've got it saved as a PDF. I can send it over to you afterwards, and then it can go out to the whole community. Would that be better? So I can try and do it now.
It sounds so interesting. I think people would like to look at it, but I think if there's a way to actually try and find it.
I'm sorry that the links don't work. That's a bit of a shame. But
I think again, it's the platform. It like suppresses everything. That would be great then. So if anyone does want to be able to have a look at that, we'll send that out afterwards.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, it is. I think it's the only thing I've seen, because a lot of sort of career coaching work, we use similar resources, and it really is sort of getting behind the skin of those things. And I think just with Lucy's, it's it's the only coach I've seen that's sort of doing it for free. And as I say, it's something that I wish I'd brought together, because it's a one-stop shop for that initial work, the sort of toughest bit of getting to the core of who you are before you go out and start looking for work.
Absolutely. And I think that's so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've just grabbed her link actually, so I will post that.
Okie dokie. Oh, brilliant.
Okay. I'm just going to pop off and grab a glass of water in a minute. So let's see you in a minute.
Okay, David says that he has been out of work since September 2019 and doesn't have a lot of confidence with work at the moment. Do you want to expand on that a little bit, David?
Yeah, I can't actually see these comments, Hayley. I don't know.
Oh. Is your chat box open, Lara? Okay, thank you for that, David. Is anyone else feeling anxiety around looking for work?
I used to really struggle with looking for work. I would read through like job descriptions, and for a split second, like feel like, yeah, I could do that. And then it would be like all the doubt would just come flooding in, and then I wouldn't be able to apply for anything.
Yeah, I used to look at it and see you must have really good communication skills, and think, oh,
not for me.
Yeah, I would totally forget that includes written communication skills.
Yeah, it's not laid out that clearly, is it? And I think you automatically assume it's all about talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose it's like Lara was saying, we look at the negative, don't we? And then things like, I was looking at some job descriptions, and there were some comments about and we're looking for an enthusiastic individual. And I thought, well, I probably wouldn't look at that and class myself as an enthusiastic individual. Like, at least not outwardly anyway.
Again, it's all those associations of that we have with certain words and language, isn't it, that makes us kind of box us into certain categories.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you see the word like enthusiastic and you think that that's someone who is seemingly more like extroverted or things, and again, enthusiasm has many different kind of expressions and qualities in it.
Yeah. Every job asks for great communication skills, yes. They want someone enthusiastic because it's not very well paid for the skill required. Lara has just been booted out of the room because of her internet connection. So
oh no.
Let's try to get back on a moment.
She will return.
Yeah.
Rebecca says on here about find it hard sticking at jobs for a long time, and interviews are the worst bit for me. Yeah, I think we all feel uneasy about interviews.
You know, for a long time, I felt really bad about leaving jobs after well, I'd say a short time, but no less than a year or so. But I've come to realise that that's actually a good thing. Like, it's quite good to just try a job and see, you know, what fits, what doesn't feel good, and then to move on. And you don't have to feel bad about it. You know, I'd always feel a bit guilty for going through the interview process and then leaving, but I've done it a few times now.
I think again, like that comes down to this whole thing of like, you make a decision, you got to stick with it. Like that, there's no sense of like being able to test the waters or something and actually discern for yourself whether or not this is a right fit for me, or, you know, is this something that I actually enjoy? And if the answer is no, then permission to move on and try something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I took a job that I did quite well in the interview, which really surprised me because it was just one of those things that I had thrown in an application for and thought, you know, I'm probably not going to get it. But you know, through the interview, I kind of honoured my quietness and my reflective nature and asked to come back to questions later after I'd had a bit of time to think on it. And on the way out, I'd spoken to the main employer about, you know, I don't really shine in job interviews because I am more reflective and I take a bit more time to process things. And he was like, I totally get it. And I hate doing interviews and I feel so anxious when I'm doing job interviews. Which surprised me because I'd never really thought about it from the perspective of the job interviewer before. So yeah, I actually got the job. But then within 9 months, the job role had changed and the adjustments that had been put into place, where I'd asked if I could work closer to home in the office that was a bit smaller, and I'd had project work in my mobile phone and things, all of that was kind of taken away, and I was required to go and work in the big open plan office, and I hated it. And you know, when you get to like a Sunday and then you feel that anxiety building up, and you feel yourself getting teary, and I'm like,
morning dread.
Yeah, it's time to change the job. Yeah, but what had happened was the lovely employer that I had, the lovely manager who had interviewed me, had gone on long-term sick for his own mental health, and his manager had taken over the team and had been like, right, everyone must work close to me, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Because
it is.
Well, there's that like introvert extrovert. So introverted leaders, which my original manager definitely was, are actually found to be more or better leaders for people who are more proactive. And extroverted leaders are often better leaders for people who prefer to just, you know, not really think for themselves and just
have more direction.
Yeah, have a lot more direction. So I went from having this wonderful introverted manager who really trusted me and allowed me to run my own projects and things, to having this more extroverted manager that wanted to see me every day and have me kind of by her side. And yeah, it just felt icky to me. It didn't suit me anymore.
That's really interesting. Hi again, Lara.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So weird. I have an error message. Sorry, everyone. I have an error message in the middle of my screen, and there's nothing that's getting rid of it. So I don't know if everyone's happy to carry on, or I could run a second session. What would you like me to do?
I can hear you fine. I don't know if anyone could just say in the comments if everything is okay in terms of what they can see and hear.
Yeah, and it's not letting me move my slides on either. So I really.
Would you like me to move your slides for you?
Potentially.
Oh, and she's gone again.
Okay.
Okay. This is the joys of live streaming.
There's always something. But then there is in-person workshops as well, isn't there?
Exactly. like this is the equivalent of like a projector not working, isn't it?
Yes, that's what it is. And there's always a projector that doesn't work for us.
Let me see. We should try again. I'm just wondering actually, what like the participants here, like what your kind of like dream job or dream role would kind of look like what is it that you're looking for in a job?
My dream job was always a job that I could hide in the background and not be seen or have to talk to anyone.
Yeah, I remember actually that I one of the jobs that I had a couple of years ago, the role itself that I was applying for was supposed to be more kind of that role, and it wasn't until I got the job that I then found out that I would have to be serving customers as well. And I was like, but I thought this was supposed to be like a marketing role, like sitting at the computer and being in the office, and there was all these added extra bits of like having to also serve customers and things like that, which I didn't really want to do or feel very comfortable with.
I actually took a role that was supposed to be, I can't remember the actual name of it, a client communication executive or something fancy that really meant nothing. But it was basically that my role was to approach senior executives and try to sell them services. And I tried this for a while, and I was doing it by contacting them on LinkedIn and by making cold calls or following up with queries that had come through the website. And it really wasn't me. But I quickly had a look at what else was going on in the business in terms of marketing, and saw that basically they were just reliant on this sales process and their marketing was terrible. And I managed to craft this role as a marketing manager for myself.
You created your own job.
I did. So I took this role as a marketing manager after maybe 6 months or so. And we decided to change my job title, and then recruited someone who was much better at having those conversations and, much more fluid than I was, and much more confident just picking up the phone and talking to somebody random. Whereas I was like hyperventilating, like thinking about talking to this very experienced senior executive at the other end of the phone.
I just asked Hayley what that was like for you to be able to go to your boss and suggest like to change the job role? Because I think like when I kind of think about that, I feel like that would be quite scary to do that.
So that's not how it happened.
Right, okay.
It was more a case of me identifying other things that needed to be doing, and bringing research as to why this was important. And then saying that I could, step into this role, and I started redesigning the website, writing blog posts. And I had already started looking at introversion and extroversion and was well aware of my own qualities by them. So then I could suggest, how about we bring somebody else on board? And actually, I know someone who would complement me really, really well. And we brought him on board as the person who was going to make the cold calls.
So fascinating. Yeah. So like if anyone was kind of already in a job position that they see opportunities for like perhaps shifting it slightly, what advice would you offer to them?
I think, share what you see. It's so easy to sit in the role that you've been given and try to sit within this script that you've kind of got. And in this job role, we'd even been given scripts to kind of, this is what you say when you ring up or when you email someone. And I was constantly going off script and going, well, actually, the research says this, or let's try a different way. And the manager was quite open to trying these different ways. So that really helped. I know not all managers are going to be, but like we were saying earlier, there are some managers who are going to feel threatened by people who are more proactive. But there are a lot of managers who are really going to embrace it, and you can bring a hell of a lot of value to the company by actually using your creative mind and your ability to problem solve and see things that other people aren't seeing in that way.
I love that, because what that also kind of just highlighted to me then is that if you are working with someone who, like, if that's the approach that like you want to take, and you're seeing kind of all those opportunities and stuff, and you want to start kind of bringing in that stuff, but it's not being received very well, I think it's so easy for us to think then that we shouldn't be doing that, and that there's, again, perhaps something wrong with us, or kind of all those doubts and stuff coming in. But actually, maybe the thing to question is whether or not you're working with someone that actually complements your skills and what it is that you need to bring. And perhaps maybe that's an opportunity to also start looking at, like, maybe you need to look for something different, or to be working with someone different in order to actually maximize your own skills and talents and potential. And again, bringing it back to actually what works for you, as opposed to trying to fit yourself into other positions. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I worked with a friend, and he had been in a job role for 10 years with like Marks and Spencer's, and he had a really, safe, secure role. And then he saw that he didn't really have any opportunities for career progression. So he took this leap to come and work with me in a startup company. And eventually we actually got made redundant via text message on a bank holiday weekend. So, not the kind of leader that you want to work for or want to be. But he immediately went to pieces because he couldn't see how he was going to, pay his rent or get another job. But it turned out to be like the biggest gift for him, because being in that position made him be more creative and use his creativity. He suddenly had to step out of his comfort zone and approach people and ask for opportunities. And because he did that, he found that those opportunities came to him, and he had the space to be able to take on things. And he actually, as a self-employed person, ended up creating a role that really suited him. And he was doing like maybe 3 or 4 different types of work in this role. He was working as an organist, he was doing stock taking, he ended up working for a funeral company even. So he was doing amazing stuff, and he ended up earning more and loving his work more than he ever had done as somebody who was employed. So I think that's something to get over there, because I know I felt it too, that when we are employed and we have this kind of sense of security, but as I found out, it's kind of a false sense of security at times. And there's quotes about, you're building somebody else's dream. So what's your dream? What do you want to build for yourself? And it's okay to take that leap and create something for yourself. And even if that means like you get other people on board and you're working with people who complement you, like Stacey and I do here. And like we've laid out tasks and gone, right, what are we drawn to? And we're drawn to different stuff, and it really works for us. It's just knowing what we're kind of, what our skills and qualities are.
Which then comes back to kind of what Lara was saying about, looking at what energizes you and what you're most engaged with, and the things that you feel good about and enjoy doing, and start really pulling in those kind of qualities as you're looking for work roles and positions and things like that. So I would definitely recommend doing those exercises that Lara suggested.
And going back to David's comment about, you've been out of work for a little while and you're feeling anxious about finding this job, I can really relate to that as well. And we have a tendency to kind of let those rejections build up and make it mean something about us. So it's really important to kind of step back and look at the situation as it really is. The job market is tough. And if we're not getting jobs, then it's not a reflection on us so much. We can do what we can do, but we can't, somebody else there saying they've been out of work since 2020 as well. So, I think it is really important to just allow yourself to practice. Think of those interviews as practice runs. You're there to collect the no's, and eventually you're going to build up your confidence on these practice runs, and then be able to turn up to a job and get a yes, and you'll even surprise yourself, like I did, going to a job and thinking, I'm not going to get this. I don't even know what the role name means. What exactly is commissioning anyway? And and you'll surprise yourself by getting a job because you are attaching less pressure to it. There's not so attached to the outcome. You're just there for the experience and being in the now.
Yeah, I had a client at the start of last year, and our sessions kind of ended with her going for a job interview somewhere, and like she came in to our session after the interview and was like, I don't even care if I get this job, because I was just so pleased that I showed up and was really true to myself, and I felt authentic, and I spoke about the things that I was interested in and what I I think she really pulled on those kind of introverted qualities that she had, and really shined a light on those, and was like, this is what I'm passionate about, this is what I think I can do. And just because she had just shown up just as herself, she was like, that felt like the achievement. She was like, so again, that kind of attachment to the actual outcome of getting the job or not had kind of lessened and loosened up for her, because she went into it with the intention of I'm just want to go in and just be myself, and then what happens after that is not in my hands anymore, and what happens, I'll be fine either way. So I think there is things that we can play around with that, of how we're actually approaching these interviews and the job hunt and searching for things in the first place.
There's so much freedom in that. And I think the other thing that's really worked for me is, I think as introverts, we're naturally really curious about other people and things. So we can really bring that into the interview. And what worked for me was asking my interviewer a lot of questions about, why he set up the business, why he's choosing to work with a certain type of client and things, and showing that interest and building that rapport. And I mean, we know what it's like to have someone show that interest in you. So you're developing that rapport, and they're feeling warmth about who you are. And I think that can be really good. So ramp up the curiosity when you go into the interview. It's not just about them assessing if you're a good fit for the role and the team. It's about you getting to know them and seeing if you really want to work with them. Are they a good fit for you?
Yeah, and I think that's such an important and key question, is that, you know, this is a two-sided thing. Like when you're going for jobs, it's two-sided. It's not just about, you know, them making the choice. Like the choice is just as much as yours as it is them. So even if like somebody does offer you a job and actually after getting to the interview you decide that it doesn't feel right or it doesn't feel good, like you have that choice and that freedom to be able to turn something down. It's, you know, it's definitely two-sided. So I love that, Hayley. That's great.
It takes the pressure off and eases the anxiety, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Lara has texted and said that she's unable to get back on. Her internet has gone down.
Okay.
So we are going to reschedule the second half of this session. And we will connect with Lara and then let you know when the session is going to be. Yeah, I won't say a date yet, but hopefully not so far in the future.
we will plan something out. Please look out for an email. And thank you all for coming along and for sticking around whilst we waited to see if Lara could come back.
Yeah, and she will be sure to answer your questions next time. She says to apologise to everyone for, you know, dropping out of the session, and especially David, because she was just about to answer your question. So
she will be back, just not today.
Yeah. So we hope to see you again on the next session. You'll be getting an email from us with an update. So thank you all for coming along, and again, thank you for bearing with us through the technology issues.
I hope you've taken something away from the first half of the workshop anyway, and this could be a nice opportunity actually just to start on some of those more reflective things that Lara was mentioning beforehand, and then when the second half of the workshop is going live, we'll be focusing more in on some of those practical things a bit, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so good opportunity to start with some reflection first.
Yeah, have a little think about those qualities that, you know, are really like you, and where your strengths might actually lie, and the things that you might enjoy. And I like, you've already started, Rebecca, haven't you?
I love that comment.
10 years ago and loved it, and this has just got you thinking about maybe that is something that you could pick back up. Maybe it is.
Absolutely. Explore it. See what's in it.
Let that bubble up for a little while and see what comes of it. Okay, thank you all for coming.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.